One believes Luffy was destined to become Pirate King because of the gum fruit, the legendary devil fruit that would one day awaken into the power of the Sun God Nika, the fruit that turned a reckless kid into the greatest threat the world government had seen in 800 years. But what if that never happened? What if one tiny moment changed the entire future of One Piece forever? Imagine this. Shanks places the mysterious fruit on the table inside Makino's bar like he did in the original timeline. Young Luffy watches it carefully while the red hair pirates laugh. Luffy eats the fruit because nobody notices him in time. But in this timeline, Lucky Roo grabs the fruit before Luffy can bite it. Luffy freezes in shock while the pirates burst into laughter. Shanks smiles and pulls the fruit away from him. He tells Luffy that this power is too dangerous for a child. It seems like a tiny moment that changes nothing. But in reality, it changes everything. Because now Luffy grows up completely powerless. No rubber body. No impossible durability. No immunity to bullets. Without devil fruit powers, Luffy feels ordinary. Every time Ace and Sabo jump into danger, Luffy struggles to keep up. He gets injured more often. He loses more fights. Sometimes he even wonders if his dream is impossible. Andrew Garp notices this immediately. Instead of relying on supernatural powers, he begins relying on instinct, reflexes, speed, and creativity. This version of Luffy becomes smarter, sharper, more dangerous in unexpected ways. Ace notices it too. One evening during sunset after training, Ace speaks seriously. You don't need powers to become a monster. Those words stay with Luffy forever. Because without the fruit, his greatest weapon is no longer his body. It's his will. As time passes, the timeline drifts further away from the original story completely. When Luffy finally sets sail, the ocean feels terrifying. In the original timeline, cannonballs and bullets meant nothing to him. But here, every battle feels deadly. His fight against Alvida nearly kills him instantly. Instead of overpowering enemies, he survives with instincts. Every dodge matters. Every punch matters. One mistake means death. And then comes Buggy the Clown. This is where the timeline truly becomes dark. Buggy's floating blades become horrifying against a normal human. Luffy cannot simply tank attacks anymore. Buildings collapse as flames spread through the streets. Civilians run in panic while Buggy laughs inside the destruction. Luffy gets cut again and again, barely surviving while trying to defeat an enemy far stronger than himself. After escaping Buggy's chaos and barely surviving the East Blue for this long, the Straw Hats slowly started growing stronger. Not because Luffy was overpowering everyone in his path, but because every single fight was forcing the crew to evolve faster than they were supposed to. Usopp eventually joins the crew after Syrup Village, bringing something the Straw Hats desperately needed in this timeline: strategy. Because unlike the original story, these fights couldn't just end with Luffy punching the villain into another dimension anymore. Every battle now needed planning, distractions, teamwork. But the biggest turning point came at the Barati, the floating restaurant where the crew met Sanji. Because unlike the original timeline, Sanji joining the Straw Hats here feels less like gaining a cook, and more like gaining a second captain in combat. Someone powerful enough to stand beside Zoro and carry fights Luffy physically couldn't. Only became worse when the crew finally reached Arlong Park. Because Arlong wasn't just another pirate, he was stronger, faster, more brutal than anyone Luffy had faced before. A fishman who treated humans like insects. And the second the fight started, the difference in power became obvious immediately. Villagers watching from a distance started losing hope instantly. Because this wasn't some unstoppable monster anymore. This wasn't the pirate they imagined would save them. This was just a guy, bleeding, exhausted, struggling to even stand back up against a fishman far stronger than him. And for the first time since the Straw Hats formed, the crew truly starts fighting as one unit instead of depending completely on Luffy. Because Luffy finally understands this fight was never about being stronger than Arlong. It was about freeing Nami, protecting his crew. So instead of fighting blindly again, Luffy starts destroying Arlong Park itself, the maps, the rooms, the empire Arlong built through fear. And for the first time, Arlong panics. He rushes toward Luffy in pure rage, but this time the Straw Hats work together perfectly. Sanji intercepts him. Usopp slows him down with traps. Zoro blocks his path despite barely standing, bleeding and exhausted. Luffy charges forward one last time and lands a final devastating punch straight into Arlong's face, sending him crashing beneath the collapsing building. After defeating Arlong, Nami officially joined the crew, and with all 5 members finally together, the Straw Hats left the East Blue and entered the Grand Line. But unlike the original timeline, Luffy couldn't rely on rubber powers anymore. That changed the crew dynamic quickly. Zoro and Sanji had to handle more direct combat, while Nami became even more important for survival at sea. Soon after entering the Grand Line, the crew reached Drum Island, where they met Tony Chopper. In this timeline, Chopper's role became much bigger from the start, because Luffy took real damage in every fight. After seeing Luffy risk his life to protect an entire country despite being completely human, Chopper decided to join the crew. Now, with a doctor on board, the Straw Hats continued toward Alabasta, completely unaware that Crocodile would become the first enemy Luffy might not be able to defeat. After surviving Drum Island and helping restore the kingdom, their journey eventually led them toward the desert nation of Alabasta. At first, it looked like a normal civil conflict, a kingdom slowly falling apart because of drought, rebellion, and distrust between its own people. But behind everything was one man secretly controlling the entire country from the shadows, Crocodile. And unlike the enemies Luffy had faced before, Crocodile wasn't just stronger. He was untouchable. A warlord of the sea with a Logia devil fruit that made normal attacks almost useless. In the original story, Luffy's rubber abilities already barely helped him survive this fight. But in this timeline, without any devil fruit powers at all, Alabasta would become the first arc where the Straw Hats truly realized something terrifying. Without rubber powers, Luffy couldn't even touch him properly. Crocodile defeated him badly and left him buried in the desert. But just after realizing liquids could affect Crocodile's sand body, he challenged him again. Only this time, the fight was far more brutal. Every hit Luffy took caused real damage, and without enhanced durability, he was reaching his limit much faster. Meanwhile, the rest of the crew handled the chaos across Alabasta themselves. Helping save Alabasta and saying goodbye to Nefertari Vivi, the Straw Hats left the kingdom with a new unexpected crewmate on board, Nico Robin, the former partner of Crocodile. Even though the crew didn't fully trust her at first, Luffy allowed her to stay, and together they continued deeper into the Grand Line toward the legendary Sky Island, Skypiea. After reaching Jaya, the Straw Hats learned about a way to reach the legendary Sky Island from Mont Blanc Cricket. While most people mocked the idea, Cricket explained that a massive knock-up stream could launch a ship high above the clouds. After preparing the Going Merry and surviving attacks from rival pirates, the crew waited for the giant ocean eruption, the only path leading toward Skypiea. Soon after, the knock-up stream launched the Going Merry into the sky, bringing the Straw Hats to Skypiea. The crew quickly got dragged into a war between Enel, the Sky People, and the Shandians. Without rubber powers, Enel became far more dangerous since his lightning attacks could fully damage Luffy. Instead of immunity, Luffy had to survive using speed, instincts, and close combat. While Zoro and the others fought Enel's priests across Skypiea, Luffy went directly after Enel before he could destroy the island completely. Without rubber powers protecting him from lightning, every attack from Enel became deadly. Luffy had to dodge massive lightning blasts, survive direct hits, and force Enel into close-range combat where his speed and observation mattered less. After fighting through Enel's priests and reaching the flying arc Maxim, Luffy destroyed parts of the ship during the battle and kept pressuring Enel with raw physical attacks. The final clash sent both of them crashing toward the giant golden bell above Skypiea, where Luffy landed the finishing blow and rang the bell across the entire Sky Island, finally proving the City of Gold was real. After returning from Skypiea with gold and experience from fighting Enel, the Straw Hats finally reached Water 7, where even bigger problems were waiting for them. At Water 7, the Straw Hats learned the Going Merry could not be repaired. Usopp fought Luffy and left the crew while Robin was captured by CP9. When Luffy discovered Robin sacrificed herself to save them, he decided to attack the world government directly. At Enies lobby, the Straw Hats declared war to rescue Robin. Without any devil fruit powers, Luffy shocked everyone with pure physical strength and insane speed. Marines feared him even more because his power came completely from combat skill. Then Luffy faced Rob Lucci. Without gear transformations, the fight became a brutal hand-to-hand battle. Even Lucci realized Luffy kept growing stronger during combat itself. After an exhausting fight, Luffy defeated Lucci with one final devastating punch and escaped Enies lobby with Robin safely back on the crew. The Going Merry could no longer sail, so the Straw Hats gave their beloved ship an emotional farewell. Frankie then joined the crew and introduced their new ship, the Thousand Sunny, before they finally left Water 7 for their next adventure. Wait for Part 2. The Straw Hats finally leave Water 7 with their new ship, the Thousand Sunny, as even greater dangers begin waiting for them in the Grand Line.